lovelies. So I'm back again with another podcast. Today I'm going to be talking a lot about spiritual awakening and spiritual encounters, shall we say. Things where, you know, the people that believe in kind of like the supernatural side of life, which I obviously do because I'm a psychic medium and I absolutely love my gift. So what I really want to talk about today is spiritual awakening and how this then opens up the gates for you to be able to become a gifted soul. Now, not everybody is gifted. Not everybody comes to the earth and they have a gift that they can share. However, we are all very, very gifted in our own ways. So we all have a gift that we can share with the world. It might not be a spiritual gift, but it might be something like, you know, you may be an artist, you may be, anything really. I'm just using that as an example. So spiritually gifted people are people that are very highly sensitive. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this because I also do a spiritual awakening course, which you can join if you would like to. And all you need to do is send me a message. You can find me on all kinds of social medias. So I've got a Facebook page, which is Gifted Girl. You can also find me at kelly.gifted.girl on Instagram, and you can also go to my website, which is www.giftedgirluk.co.uk. I almost forgot it then. So yeah, basically when you are a gifted soul, you are someone who is very highly sensitive. You can start to feel the energies of people around you. You might find that when you walk into a room, you can feel the energy just by going in the room and be like, whoa, I know what's going on here. For instance, like just for an example, you could walk into a room and you know straight away that someone has got an issue or someone doesn't like you, or you just get that vibe, you just get that vibe from somebody. And for me, when I used to get that feeling, it was very uncomfortable and I used to find it really, really hard to control how I was feeling about this situation. And what I would do is what most people do when they get overwhelmed with feelings, is you would just leave. That's sensitive that we tend to just walk away. We move and we walk away from it. So again, yeah, this also can happen when you are somebody who is very, very spiritually gifted and you connect with spirit. Now, let's go into a little bit of like spiritual encounter. Right, so first of all, when I was 3 years old, this is how I knew I was spiritually gifted, and I didn't realise actually until I was about 16. I was about 15, 16 years old. I was sleeping in my bedroom, and when I woke up, and I never forget this story, my mum always says to me, how on earth do you still remember this? It's something that happened that I can't forget. I was laying in my bed, and I woke up to go to the toilet, and I was 3 years old, and I remember getting up and lifting my head, and I couldn't get my head out of the blanket, and I was stuck, literally like as if someone had placed the blanket and, like tucked it under the mattress. So I had to wriggle down the bed, and I got out the left side of my bed. My foot went through the side of the blanket, and I got out. And as I got out, now this could be that my bed obviously wasn't like that. It could just be that I was so little that I'd shrunk down the bed. Like when your mum and dad usually leave it loose at the top and then you sort of wriggle down the bed and the bed's tucked in there. That's what I think was really happening. Being 3, I was probably like this big. So anyway, I got out my bed, and as I got out, I remember looking up, and as I did, there was a lady in a rocking chair. She was grey. She had like a really dark grey black sort of dress on with a white frilly sort of apron on, and she had like a hat on as well that was kind of frilly around the top, and she was just rocking back and forward like this on a massive wooden rocking chair. And next to her was a man. A man was just stood there. I don't know what he was doing. He was just stood there. And she kept going like this, come here. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like this is so freaky. But I wasn't scared. It was really weird. I was like, why? Who is she? Like, what is she? And I remember telling the story to my mum. So obviously I went to the toilet, I come back, and she was still there and he was still there. I also saw like a little boy in the corner, but I didn't really pay much attention to him. So I just literally got back in my bedroom. This is the God's honest truth. We used to have all the lights off in the house as well. So if you open the door, like we had those, like a knob on the door that you used to have to, and I used to have to really, really wrench it round with my hands, my little tiny hands, to try and open the door. Because honestly, it was those horrible really round. And if you're a child, you can't open your door. Anyway, so I went to the toilet and I come back. And as I come back to my room, she was still rocking in the chair and she was going, come here. And I didn't want to go to her. I was like, no, I'm going to bed. And I remember going back to bed, and that's as far as I can remember. My mum said that I came down the next morning, I told her the story, and she was just gobsmacked because she also saw the lady in the rocking chair in the living room at one time. So it was really, really mad experience for a 3-year-old to go through. But as I went through life, and we lived in this one particular house, I remember the number 4. That's the only house really. And another one, we had 111. And I just remember thinking, like, I just remember in my life that those numbers really resonate with me. And it's really bizarre because I haven't forgot them. I still remember them. And these are when I was little. These are like when I was born and up to the age of 4. And so obviously for me straight away, I sit back and I'm like, okay, so that's when I first ever knew that I was gifted. Some people don't have those kind of experiences. They just kind of like see a glimpse out the side of their eye, or they hear things. And some people have like dreams, and it's like a premonition dream. Those things also have happened to me many, 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 many times. And I remember being a very, very young child and still seeing all these, like sometimes I would go to walk down the stairs and there's a man standing at the bottom of the stairs. And as I pass him, I don't feel him or anything. I just walk past him. And my mum said to me, why was you never scared? But you know, as I've got older, I actually felt scared of spirit. I was actually really scared of spirit at one point. I remember thinking, well, when I was younger, I never used to be bothered. Like, why am I bothered now? What is it so, that's making me bothered? And it's as you grow older, you learn, you learn that spirit is supernatural in some way, and you learn that spirit is not part of life as in the human life. And that is the part of me that now, obviously, I totally understand it now. Now that I've kind of learned all the kind of things that I need to learn about being a spiritually gifted person, I know that I'm a psychic medium, I connect with them. I learned how to connect with them properly so that I could then understand why they're here, and what my role is in them being there with me. And that is to pass messages over to others in the human world from spirit. And that is something that, as a young child, I would never have known that. Obviously, I would never have known that. It was just, I had to learn this as I got older, that you need to channel those messages through, and there are certain ways that you have to do that. So I sent out a little message to some of my little followers on my Instagram and on my Facebook, and it was really interesting, some of the details that they gave me. Moving on then, so basically I had a couple of people send me some messages. Let's see what the messages were. So I asked people, have you ever had an encounter with spiritual beings, as in, are you gifted basically, or have you had spirit encounters? I had one lady, I'm going to say her name begins with S, and she sent me a lovely message saying, yes, I've had a spiritual encounter, and it was really bizarre. Her grandmother had passed away, so she said, my grandmother passed away, and it was 6 weeks after she passed away, I saw a feather at the bottom of the stairs. There was no windows open, there was nothing there at all, just me in the house alone, no windows, nobody had been out, no one came in. And what's really interesting about this is that then she said she walked down the stairs, and as she saw the feather, the light in the living room flickered, and she couldn't understand why this had happened to her. The lights wasn't switched on, and I certainly hadn't turned the light on. There was no one else with me. Can you let me know if there's anything you pick up from this? Well, instantly, obviously, I go into that and I listen to what she said, and the answer to her was, well, have you been connecting and asking your angels and guides or your spirit family to come through? And the answer I got was yes. Yes, I have. And I said, well, what did you expect? Like, what was it you was expecting that they were going to do to connect with you? What was you expecting them to communicate to you? And how did you expect them to communicate? And her answer was very, very simple. So this is where we go into what she said to me. So I asked, how did you expect them to communicate with you? And she said to me, she said, well, I thought that maybe they'd just show themselves to me. Or I thought, to be honest, I might see something that I didn't think was real. So what she means by that is that she thinks that she thought in her mind that she would maybe have something happen. And it's really weird because I had a student who said the same to me, someone who's doing the spiritual awakening course. They assumed that they would be, in a situation where they would just see something would fall off the wall, like a picture would fall over. They would just see like a spirit standing in front of them. They thought that there'd be a big bang or a noise. Some people they have an expectation, and when it doesn't come out the way that they expected, they assume it's not real. So this is where I tried to help her out, and I said, okay, so with you asking your guides or your spirit family to come through, what did you ask them to show you? She said, I didn't ask them to exactly show me anything. She said, I just wanted to know they were here. And obviously spirit work in mysterious ways, very, very mysterious ways, but in very, very beautiful ways as well. So for her, the actual spirit that was coming through to her was sending her a feather to say, we are here, as if to say, we're here. Now, feathers are a very, very common sign that spirit are around you. You will find feathers if you're having a really, really stressful time and your guides want to let you know they're there. It doesn't necessarily mean your family, it could be your spirit guides, okay? So with that, she kind of said, oh my gosh, yeah, that would make sense. She said, because whenever I've been feeling like I want to connect with my family, I always see feathers. She said, or I always see a robin. And again, the robin has feathers, and this is where it all sort of links together. And then I said to her, so what is it you really wanted your family member to show to you? And she was like, well, I just wanted to know that they were there, you know, to show me that they were around me. And I said, so you asked them to show you something? And she was like, yeah. And I said, and that's why the light flickered to say, I'm here. And this is the connection. So you connect the feather and the light flickering as, I'm here, I'm showing you I'm here with the feather, but I'm also going to show you where I am, where I'm around you. And obviously in her lounge was where her spirit family member was. The lady was really like taken back a little bit. She was like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. Like, I cannot believe I didn't think of it in that way. She said, I just couldn't put the two and two together. She said there was no one in the house, didn't understand why there was a feather on the stairs. And then when I kind of gave her the guidance that she needed, I then connected with that family member, and she was so over the moon when I told her who it was. I told her where they'd been, why they were there. I also gave her a little bit of insight into why they've been coming to her recently. And this was the phase, I can't believe you know that. I can't believe you just said that. And it's because obviously when you can connect with spirit, they have a message of guidance. And if you've been asking for guidance, they will then bring that through to whoever can bring that message, which obviously she came to me. And like I say, I was just asking if anyone's had a spiritual encounter, but that was something that I felt compelled to do because I connected with the spirit member, and it just gave her so much confirmation that everything was going to be okay, that she was okay. I love it. So there is another person that came through, and there's quite a few, so I just chose two that I'm going to go with today. Because I don't want to keep the podcast too long. So I'm just going to do another one for you. Okay, so we're going to say someone who began with the name Jay. And this person, I asked, obviously, you know, any spiritual encounters, anything that's kind of happened. She said, well, weirdly, I had a spiritual encounter that I couldn't understand, but now I think I do. And I asked her, well, what was the encounter and can you explain what you were going through at the time? She said, I was going through a very difficult breakup. I was going through a divorce and I was really struggling at this time. When this spiritual encounter came to me, I did not realise that actually I was going through an awakening. So this is why I'm talking about spiritual awakenings, okay? She said, I got to the point where I felt broken and I felt like everything around me was completely breaking down. Not only my marriage, but also my life. Everything was changing and I couldn't understand why. I obviously at this point said, oh my goodness, you know, I'm sorry to hear that, but what was it that actually happened? So she said, so I was in my garden and I was literally putting out the washing. And then suddenly I heard someone say my name. Couldn't see anybody. There was no neighbours out. And she says, I also asked, who is this, out loud. She said, and the strange thing happened, there was nobody there as in a human, but I did see a shadow to the left side of my eye. And as I was placing my hands back in the basket, I saw another figure stood in front of me. She said it wasn't actually a person, it was more a silhouette or a figure in clouds, as if to say it was like frosted over, sort of like a foggy sort of picture. And she says, I then realised in my mind straight away that this was my grandmother on my mum's side. So this wasn't actually her grandmother, it was her great grandmother. And she says this lady was literally the spitting image of my mum, but she came through as my grandmother, a great grandmother that came through, which was her mum's grandma. And she sort of presented herself more looking like her grandma to make her realise that it was actually a spirit family member. So then I said to her, so what did you do when this happened? And she said, I literally stopped, stood still, dropped the washing in the basket, looked around me and saw the other figure standing behind. And I asked, what do you want? She said, my grandmother grabbed a peg and dropped it on the floor from the basket. So this literally, right, I'm going to tell you something that I know to be true. Now, it takes a lot, and I mean an absolute lot of energy for a spirit to even come through, let alone be able to pick up an object and drop it. Now, for her to say that, I was a little bit like, holy crap, this is, I have never heard anyone say that they've seen a spirit literally do it, but she said she picked up a peg and she dropped it on the floor. And I said to her, so what did you do then? She said, and then I looked up and they were gone. So I said to her, what did you get from that? What did you feel the message was? And she was like, I really don't know. Well, I didn't know, is what she said. I didn't know. And then she came back with a message after I asked her, what did she actually get from this encounter? What she says is, to be honest with you, I didn't really know at first when this first happened. But as time went on and days went on, I got to like day 4 and I realised what she did this for. I kept saying my life's falling to pieces and my life is falling apart. And what she was trying to show me is that not everything falls apart. So she drops a peg just to let me know that actually it's only a peg that's dropped on the floor. I was like, wow, she just got that. She got that over days of like thinking about it, working it out. Now, she took something really like valuable from that. And she just said, you know, I've never met this grandmother. It's not my grandmother, but she looked like my grandmother. And she said the fact that she tried to do that to make me feel comfortable, to make me feel like, you know, like I was safe and that I could trust her. She said, I just knew that she was there saying like, basically, it might be falling apart, but we're here. We're around you. And that's exactly what I got for her. I said, what she really was trying to do was show you that she's here. Although things are falling apart for you and you feel like things are falling to pieces, you're actually supported. Your angels and your guides are all around you at all times. And this is why it's so important, I feel, to explain that spiritual people and supernatural things that people don't really understand. Like there's lots of skeptics out there who don't believe in psychics, don't believe in mediumship, don't believe that we have a supernatural connection with the universe. Some people love it though. And some people really love it. You know, some don't and some do. But either way, it is there. You know, it's not only science, but it's like people see it with their you know, their bare eyes. They see it. They can tell you stories. People that have, you know, said they've had a near-death experience where they've got, you know, gone into comas, they've gone to the light, they've gone into this different world, they come back, they feel enlightened. This is all part of our spiritual growth and our spiritual journey. And with a spiritual awakening, not always, but it normally comes about when you've gone through something quite traumatic or something big in your life. Something will have happened. It doesn't have to be something like, you know, really traumatic like a death. Just when something happens, like for instance, the one lady that had a breakdown in her marriage, that is called a trauma. That is something that could also bring out a spiritual awakening. And when a spiritual awakening happens to you, it's basically where you start to feel very differently to how you've ever felt before. It's where you start to change your belief system. It's where you start to change your life because you just don't feel like you connect with that energy anymore. You know, when we break up with somebody as well, it's because we've spiritually, like, we've unaligned with that person. That's why it becomes a spiritual awakening where, you know, your mind, your body and your soul want something different. It's just going on endings here. When something comes to an end, it's always because your guides and your angels and your universe around us wants to give you something better. There is always going to be something better. And it's you know, as much as some people say, well, you know, I've been on my own for this many years, this has happened. The reason that happens is because right at that point you need to have a break. So then you go through the stages of awakening where there's, you know, there's many stages to awakening. And if you did my course, you'd understand what they are. But life is a massive, like, spiritual development course in my eyes. I feel like every day we learn something new. We learn something spiritually. You know, we connect in different ways with the universe around us, with the people around us. We interact differently on everyday levels. I just feel like we're always in a spiritual awakening. That's just the way it comes around to me. But some people really, really don't grasp it and they don't do anything with it. With the spiritual awakening and being a spiritual soul and having these spiritual encounters, this might be a sign that actually you are a spiritual person, you are a spiritually gifted person, and maybe this is the sign that you need to open up those gifts. You know, if you're getting these little encounters that are happening to you, these little spiritual, I saw something out the corner of my eye, or, oh, I thought this the other day and it came true, or you've been having dreams that are making you feel like, you know, your guides are talking to you, like the universe is talking to you. This is a sign that you may be going through a spiritual awakening and you need to follow that path, okay? Do something about it. You don't have to, but I would always say that if you are this kind of person and you are going through those kind of things, it might be a sign for you to try and open up some gifts inside of you, okay? Or to at least see if you do have any kind of spiritual connection or spiritual gifts that you can share. So that's the end of today's podcast, guys. The reason I wanted to do a little bit on the spiritual side of things is because I'm actually going to start really delving into these kind of things with you. I'm going to be sharing some ghost stories with you. So I also have a spiritual kind of side of me that also does some spirit seeking. So I like to go out with my husband, you know, interact with spirit. I did have a really, really beautiful encounter with a spirit child, actually. It was sad, but at the same time it's a very, very beautiful story. She told me a little bit about how she passed away, and I just connect with spirit, just see if there's any messages of guidance that come through. I never ever call upon the spirit to come forward. I just tell them that I'm there, and if they're wanting to connect with me, I'm there to connect with them. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. If you do have any kind of spiritual stories, any ghost stories, any spiritual encounter, if you're someone who is a spiritually gifted soul and you want to sort of delve into that as well, please let me know. Please put some in the comments. Let me know what your spiritual encounters have been. Tell me about your ghost stories. I'll choose some of them out for next time when I do my next podcast, and I'll talk to you about what I get from your little spiritual encounter. It's just really nice to share those stories as well. So I really want to get to that point where we start sharing ghost stories, spiritual tips with you, how to open up your gift. And if you are interested in doing the Spiritual Awakening course with me, please feel free to send me a message. You can contact me on my website, again, which is www.giftedgirluk.co.uk. You can leave me a web form there where I will get back to you as soon as I get a minute to answer that message. It will be within 24 hours. You can also contact me through my Instagram, which is Kelly Gifted Girl. You can also catch me on my Facebook page. But anyway, thank you for being here, my lovelies, and I will be back with another podcast very, very soon.